going to do is we're going to listen to about 9 or 10 minutes of a man describing a near-death experience. Are you familiar with near-death experiences? People who have been, their body stopped working, they've been pronounced clinically dead, and they have this experience of leaving their body, and then at some point they return to their body. And the scientific community, the amount of people that have had this experience and the similarity that all of them have is so pronounced that the scientific community is not ignoring this, that they are saying that this is real, this is what happens, and when they have all the scientific data, they come together and they draw that conclusion. So I'd like you to listen to this for about 8 or 9 minutes, and then we'll continue after that. Okay.
Physically remember hearing myself take my last breath. I left my body through this beautiful fluorescent glowing mist hovering over my body, looking down upon myself. And when I recognized that body wasn't alive anymore, this beam came from behind me so bright, it lit up everything underneath me. And it drew me right into the gateway. This beautiful tunnel. The tunnel was made up of magnificent color. And now I am starting to move. But I'm feeling this amazing feeling. I have a feeling like I never had before. A love. The love was so incredible that you actually become the love. Now you're in this light, you're part of this light, and I'm moving at what seems to me like the speed of light. No debris, nothing, just light, beautiful colors whizzing by me, going through me. And this love is growing stronger and stronger. By the time I get to my destination, I remember distinctively saying, I'm home. I'm finally home. I remember hearing a soft voice speak to me. And she says, yes, Bill, you're home in the light of God. And then she said, my name is Antonia. I am one of your guardians. And now I'm being greeted by spirits all around me, family, friends, that I remember mingling, talking, feeling love from everybody. I recognize them, they recognize me. Everything is done through telepathy. There's no mountains at this point, there's no bodies at this point. They're beams of light. I'm still a mist at this time. After it seemed like a few minutes had passed by, and I hear this voice, hello, Billy. When I heard that voice, that was my brother's voice. My brother Peter, he was about 16 years older than me. My brother was around with me all the time while I was growing up, teaching me how to play ball, taking me to my ball games when I was in the baseball leagues and everything. He was just a wonderful, wonderful brother. And then it came out of nowhere. He wound up having liver cancer. And they told him he was going to have 4 or 5 months to live. And that devastated me. Now, I'm sure I know my brother's voice. When he said, hello, Billy, by this time everybody was calling me Bill in life. I was in my 40s, but I was Billy to him. And he says, hello, Billy. And I turned around and said, Peter. And the embrace was almost unexplainable. It was like you were part of them, they were part of you. Then he explained to me that he has to take me now, and that we were going for something. And I said, what? He says, we're going for your life review. I didn't know what that was, but this is now the first sense I have again of my life. back on earth. When I spoke to him, I forgot for a while. And he took me to another level, which they started this amazing, amazing thing. They showed me all the good I've done in my life. They showed me all the wrong I've ever done in my life. Luckily, thank God, I always say thank God, I never really felt like I really did anything really, really bad. But I didn't know the hurt I caused some people. But you get to feel that pain. You get to feel that hurt that you put onto others. You become the physical pain. And I was physically crying in my spirit, but no body. But it's like I felt the tears. It mounted and mounted and mounted so bad. I said, I can't take it anymore. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And all of a sudden, a light came in and said, now we'll show you the good side. Thank God I did a lot of good in my life, especially with that job. Years as the paramedic, doing all that, trying to save people's lives and bring them back and help them in every possible way I could. That's when I understood what we're here for. I understood that we're here for service, to help one another. We're all connected. Until that time, I was a business person. I didn't think nothing in my head but business. I was going to come home from the show and I had an appointment to go to QVC, and that was my life. I didn't have those kind of thoughts in my life prior. And then Peter said to me, your third guardian is coming. And this man of great age, wisdom, when he approached me, I knew him my whole life. He was that voice that always spoke to me in my ear. He was the intuition that kept me out of trouble, like a lot of my friends were getting in. I would always hear these things, it's not the right thing, You say that in your own mind, but that's your intuition. But he came to us, and we were standing there. And I remember Antonia there, and Antonio said, look at yourself, Bill. I remember looking down at myself, and I changed into this magnificent being. Now I was like the other spirits. I was this beautiful being. Now we're back in spirit, so I'm just feeling that complete love again. In your spirit side, you're always in love, where you're connected to everyone around
you. So I often think, and I've said this before, like you think of all of us here, we're all human beings in our bodies. But who really are we, right? We're this spiritual energy that's living in a body, and we're here for a particular period of time. And then when our bodies don't work, we leave. And these stories of people experiencing, gravitating toward this overwhelming feeling of love that they've never experienced before. It's so overwhelming. And the colors and the vibrancy of this experience, and they'll say that like there was a sense of them knowing that this was God, this overwhelming sense of love. And it's interesting in the John's Gospel where it says God is love. Not that God is loving, but that God is love, that God is somehow a conscious, aware energy or essence of love. And that every one of us comes from that life energy. Every one of us comes from that love. And that I love that where he goes and he returns to this love, and he has this feeling of like, I'm home. Like anybody that you know that you love that left their bodies, where did they go? They went home. it's so incredible, take this the right way, they don't want to come back. And that we're going home when we leave our bodies. But that while we're here in our bodies, the call, all of Scripture, the Bible, everything that we do, liturgy, whatever, the songs, it's all about growing in our ability to come out of ourselves and to love other human beings and build up their lives. You know, when you were naked, you clothed me. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I didn't have a shelter, you gave me shelter. Whatever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do to me. You know, sometimes I remember the guy one time giving this homily, and he says, what if you were to discover that you're the least of your brothers and sisters? That the person who needs your love the most is yourself. So when we think of love your neighbor as yourself, right, we understand psychologically that I can only give away what I have inside. I need to be able to have a sense of love and appreciation and understanding for myself if I can then be that for other people. And I do like that. I mean, sometimes when the scripture, you hear the scripture of like, well, this, if you haven't been good to the widows and the orphans, like, guess what? I'm going to make your wife a widow. You're going to be killed. It's such a strong, severe language, thrown out where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, this language. And yet it seems like what the experience is, like they're saying, St. Paul says, every one of us is accountable for our lives. Like, we're going to be held accountable. There's like a sense of like looking through our life, and sometimes we've hurt people. Sometimes we've hurt people we're not even aware that we've hurt those people. And it's interesting, I kind of agree with that we experience, I hurt this person and I experienced that pain. I need to feel that so I can get on the other side of it. To be able to say, like, I'm sorry. But then the other side of that is true as well, that the people who have hurt you, that they're going to experience that they hurt you. Maybe they knew it, maybe they didn't know it, but they're going to have to experience that to get on the other side of that. There's like a divine justice, there is a divine reconciliation to all of our lives. Not like, you did something bad or you hurt somebody and you're going to go to hell forever or some kind of thing like that. But it's more of like, I need to understand that so that I can grow. We're human beings and we make mistakes. So I want to be able to understand myself and accept myself, but also challenge myself and make no mistake about it. Imagine if we could live acutely knowing that every little thing I do and I say has a ripple effect on people. My grandmother used to always say, and I'm sure you've heard this, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything, right? How many times we can get into, what's that thing called, gossip? Talking about people behind their back, little things like that, you know what I mean? Like every little thing, if we could like say to ourselves, for the rest of my life, I'm only going to be positive and loving to people, and if somebody drives me nuts, I'm going to be like, you know what, I don't understand. But I'm not going to constantly, have a conflict and be negative about them. I was watching more and more of the YouTube videos about the history of Palestine and Israel, and when you could have both videos, and they'll say one side and then they'll say the other side, and they both have their side to the story as to what happened there. Probably the biggest mistake was like that they're going to share the land. I don't think so. I think they're going to find two separate areas where they can like live, But, you could see where throughout history we have, you know, again, you have the Arabs, the Muslims, the Jewish people, the Christians, the born-agains, and, you know, we get into these categories. You know, it's me against them, or you're wrong. Your belief is wrong. I'm right. Democrats and Republicans, all Americans, but we're so polarized. You know, they're not seeing, I like that sense of love your neighbor. Think of it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And again, we hear that as love your neighbor as you love yourself. But that's not what that says, really. Love your neighbor as if you're your neighbor. Isn't that a hard thing? When you think of somebody who drives you nuts, somebody who believes differently than you do, thinks differently than you do. And Jesus is calling us to a higher level of being, to love that person as if you were that person. You know, there's a great story in Gandhi, the movie Gandhi, where a Hindu man murders a Muslim. And he's crying and he says, I am in hell, I am in hell. I butchered a Muslim man. And Gandhi says to the Hindu, I know the way out of hell for you. Find a Muslim boy whose father has been killed, mother and father have been killed in this war. Adopt that Muslim boy, this Hindu man. Adopt that Muslim boy. And raise him Muslim. The guy was like, oh, yeah. I'm a Hindu and I gotta raise this kid Muslim. You know? I'm a Democrat, I gotta raise this kid Republican. Or vice versa. But do you hear that? Do you hear how radical, when we're here, we're not fooling around in here. Jesus isn't fooling around. He's calling every one of us to a radical way of being that goes way beyond our typical normal sense of justice, of what is fair, right? The guy gets hired at 9 o'clock, the guy gets hired at 4 o'clock, they both get the same money. All of us want to go like, you gotta be kidding me, I've been here since 9 o'clock, I'm getting the same as him, right? Do you hear how the call of God is this radical love for one another? And somehow when we leave our bodies, it all makes sense. Somehow we realized, like, oh, there wasn't me and you, that we were one. We were part of this divine energy, this part of this love, part of this life. And that in that there's a oneness with each other, that we're not on a battlefield. We're brothers and sisters called to come together. And when we do that, we are totally aligned with our nature and who we are intentionally to be. When we come from this love, we come from a place of power and strength and clarity and intuition. So we have this Bible. Now, this is a smaller one, right? We have a really thick Bible. All the prophets, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Amos, Psalms, the Proverbs, the Gospels, the letters from Paul. There are people who could say Leviticus chapter 22, verse 5, and they'll tell you what that is. They have that unbelievable memory, a photographic mind. I could have all the knowledge of this Bible, right? We can be lectors, we can volunteer, help out, work and do things around here, give a homily. But what Jesus is saying we don't do it from love, then the whole thing is bankrupt. It all comes down to that. The quality of our life is not the dollar amount in your bank account. It's the quality of your love. And that's the only thing we're bringing with us when we leave our bodies. So all Jesus says, all the prophets, everything in Scripture, it all comes down to one thing. Love your neighbor as yourself.